It is Orange Friday. And you hear laughter in the background. What is the role of the CIO? It's a big question, and we hear a lot of discussion about this question. Well, today, on episode number 271 of CXOTalk, we are talking with two genuine CIO innovators, two people I respect a lot, and we're going to explore this topic of how should we think about innovation, the role of the CIO in 2018. This is cutting-edge, state-of-the-art stuff. I'm Michael Krigsman. I'm an industry analyst and the host of CXOTalk. I want to say a quick thank you, but a heartfelt thank you to Livestream, because they have been supporting us for the last 2 years, and they're great. They supply our video infrastructure. And if you go to livestream.com/CXOTalk, they'll even give you a discount on their plans. Without further ado, wait, I forgot. There's a tweet chat that's going on right now using the hashtag CXOTalk. So please join in. You can ask questions, share your comments. And the other thing is, please tell a friend, like us on Facebook, tell a friend, because that will help us a lot, if you would. So now, without further ado, I want to introduce Yousuf Khan. He is CIO number 1. Yousuf Khan, who is the CIO of Pure Storage. Hey, Yousuf, how are you?
Hey, Michael. Very good indeed, thank you. Love the glasses.
Tell us about Pure Storage.
Well, first of all, thank you so much for having me here. Really honored to be here with Diana. Pure Storage is a company we've been around for coming up to about 8 years now. We are a leading provider of a data platform for the cloud era, and been a very, very exciting ride for me as the company's first CIO, and really looking forward to being able to collaborate with other CIOs and seeing the company rise in the industry as well.
And Yousuf, you run a CIO group that's really interesting, and maybe briefly tell us about that.
Yeah, so I mean, when I joined, this has been a very interesting ride for me as probably the third time I've done a job where I'm the first CIO for a company and helping to organize, hardworking IT teams. And so when I took the role on, a large part of it was being able to meet with like-minded peers. And so one of the things to be able to do that is, as much as I enjoy going to CIO events from time to time, actually being able to probably have a more productive conversation, sometimes delving into what I term as group therapy happens. And so when CIOs get together. And so, been organizing CIO gatherings informally, mainly over dinner, because everybody needs to eat, but also because we're able to get into a mode where we're able to build a little bit more camaraderie and get together and talk about the industry.
Okay, and our second CIO is Diana McKenzie, who is the CIO of Workday. Hey, Diana, this is your second time on CXOTalk, and welcome back.
Thank you, Michael. I'm happy to be here, and Happy New Year to you and everyone on the call.
Diana, I think everybody knows the Workday name, but tell us about Workday.
Sure. So Workday is a software company. We were founded to put people at the center of cloud-based financial and human resource software. We have over 1,900 customers that range from medium size to Fortune 50 customers with over 26 million workers on contract. And last year we achieved a 98% customer satisfaction rate for our software platform. And we also achieved 18th position ranking in the Fortune 100 best places to work, which is why it's such a pleasure to be here.
Well, it's a pleasure for me that you're both here. And Yousuf, maybe I'll direct the first question to you. So this show is about CIO innovation, and what do we actually mean by that?
Well, I think where we are right now, the level of innovation that's been surrounding our companies and our industries at large, I think for CIOs it is a real opportunity to question the assumptions which have been kind of traditionally helped build IT organizations. And I think really innovation is centered around the fact that you're able to not only question those assumptions, but be able to think much more broadly about not only about what the business needs are, where you're able to accelerate and deliver good solutions for business to operate, but how to basically really aid the effort to really change the customer experience, to be able to give much deeper insights. So I think that opportunity right now really exists, and that's what I've basically sort of typically seen. And so I think CIOs really have the opportunity right now to really think in innovative terms, because we're in an ecosystem that allows us to actually both experiment and be thoughtful about what solutions we want to be able to deliver to our businesses.
And Yousuf, I'd build on that. I think you and I are both fortunate in that we work for companies where other CIOs are our customers.
Yeah.
And so we're put in a position where not only do we have to think about how we help our customers and our peers innovate, but it also requires us to be within our companies right at the heart of the innovation of the products that we're developing.
Yeah.
And I have to compliment you on the group that you formed. I was new to the Bay Area when I took this position at Workday 2 years ago, and again, first CIO position Workday had. And had an opportunity to meet Yousuf at one of these dinners, and just found him to be an incredible coach, mentor, competent, and the group of leaders that we have the privilege to get together and meet with on a monthly basis has developed a real chemistry, because we are all in the Bay Area and we are all mostly working for technology companies, and it's just been a really great experience. So thank you for that.
Well, thank you for being such a good, I wouldn't call it a member, but a friend more than anything else. And I think, just to kind of go a little bit more onto that, I think one thing we've basically found is, and I don't know whether you would agree or not, but if you're part of the CIO of a technology company, it's actually a good place to be able to actually be able to work with a number of your business partners and represent in a customer viewpoint if fundamentally you'll basically find that the CIO is that end customer. Right. And so I really found the opportunity that innovation is as much about being able to aid your business partners about how you basically view the product, which is something that I basically do. But also I think you've really excelled by building out what I consider a WOW team, both figuratively and literally from an acronym standpoint, by demonstrating the use of Workday within Workday. And that's a model example that a number of our CIOs that I follow actually inspired me to do. I have a great job because I don't have any storage issues, so that basically is my effort. But I think that's been a real model example. I think if you're a CIO of a technology company, that really is a real opportunity for you to be able to test the bounds, because it's kind of expected to a certain extent, and share those with CIOs. Yeah.
But I have a question. So you mentioned customer experience, and maybe you can explore that. So what does customer experience have to do with being a CIO, and how important is that actually?
So I'll pick up on the innovation agenda, and then I'll pick up, Michael, on how you started the talk today, which is the priority focus for us in 2018. It may be a little old, but this notion that every company is becoming a software company is one that I think continues to be very powerful. Yeah. And it doesn't matter if you are the CIO of a technology company or you're the CIO of any company that makes any sort of product or service. The consumer perspective is changing fairly dramatically to expect so much more from the people that provide them their products and services, and those products and services are expected to be more personalized for our consumers. Yeah. And that in turn means that as CIOs within our business, understanding what that consumer is expecting from us and from our product becomes a critical area of focus for us. It was in 2017, but more so in 2018. Yeah. We also find another priority being the importance of talent in our organizations and the war for talent that's actually going on out there. Yeah. And the more we can engage our employees in the workplace and make them feel like they can come to work or work from home and accomplish what they need to accomplish in a very seamless way, that's an area a CIO can have a major impact on. We were just talking about some of these earlier this week. Yeah,
I think the really important thing about it is, we're living in an experience economy. And I think that's really because customer experience and satisfaction is kind of unforgiving to a large extent, right? I think, and that applies for technology companies like ourselves. And we pride ourselves by having a very, very industry-leading NPS score. You yourselves have also done tremendously well from that space. But and that's really because. Because there's so much innovation out there, because these industries are really basically being kind of disrupted, and there's more innovation happening in terms of just product innovation, you've got to be able to sort of work with companies, and that's where kind of the CIO gets involved and say, how do we improve the customer experience by making it easy to be able to do business with, either via channel partners or being able to provide a much better support experience? How do we make sure that the transaction and being able to conduct that business becomes easier, because it's kind of the entire customer journey. So I think the role of the CIO has really evolved over time, where you have to be much more attuned to understanding what the customer experience is from start to finish, even before they become a customer. How do we make sure that our messaging is being delivered, and how we're taking digital insights and data that we're seeing from analytics from our website and from our social media streams to be able to actually put that together and say, how should we be designing marketing campaigns which are working and not? And so I think that's just an exciting era in terms of what we've basically been seeing to date. And the CIO is kind of at the front and center of that by partnering with the other functions to be able to help deliver that experience.
And I'm going to build on the fact that you're my customer.
Sure.
And
a very happy one. Thank you. Yes.
Very happy about that. And back to your recognition of the Workday on Workday team, which we call the WOW team. So that team gives us the opportunity within Workday to work very closely with our leaders in the company and also with our product team to make sure that the product we're building and delivering to our customers, first of all, works for us. It gives us an opportunity to go first and learn and be very involved in the product development process in terms of making that product better. But then I have the opportunity to spend time with my colleagues and my customers, such as Yousuf and a number of others, and we talk about not only how are the products performing today, but how the products could be performing, and we can bring that feedback back into the system. And not only that, but she gave us some really great feedback about how we can help CIOs have better conversations with their CHROs and their CFOs as they think about advancing their strategies digitally. So I think it's a very nice synergy that we found in that space.
Yeah, I've sort of found that if you're the CIO for a technology company, that you are basically a model customer and have that opportunity. And so that's one of the things that we did when we were looking to basically build our data infrastructure internally to provide kind of analytics and machine learning, which is what we've been able to do. A large part of that is basically because we were able to test out our product internally and be able to actually work with our engineering product team to say, hey, look, this is the use cases that I hear from like-minded peers, like Diane and otherwise, which this is what they need from an analytics stack. This is what we need to be able to design our product for. And I think that's just aided that effort. So being able to just collaborate from that function it's been phenomenal.
So how does a CIO make that leap from focusing on the internal infrastructure operations of an organization to being almost a customer experience coach for other parts of the business? How do you make that transition?
CIOs have to be thoughtful about how they make that transition. It starts with where we've spent some of the time here, understanding the paying customer and understanding the business you're in, because that's table stakes for a CIO. The second piece of that, though, is there are aspects of what the CIO is expected to deliver that are all about being brilliant at the basics. And if the CIO isn't delivering on the basics, just as if the CFO wasn't closing the books and the CHRO wasn't paying employees, the CIO is going to have a very hard time stepping into that space to influence the company around how to better interact with customers. So it's a combination of knowing the business, of delivering on the basics, and developing very powerful relationships, both internally and externally, to continue to broaden that perspective and be in a position to introduce new ideas that can influence and shape the direction a company's going.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's two key points. I think you put out a blog post about last year, which you talked about kind of doing the basics, and a lot of us kind of followed that because I think it's really important to know that the foundation of where the company is built and how it operates in a seamless fashion is important. I mean, you have to be thoughtful about making sure that that is functioning in the way that it's supporting the business's growth. But I think the second piece is knowing the context of your customer and the business and the partnerships that you basically build. I think it's a really good vantage point for the CIO because kind of technology is cutting across every single aspect of the business. And so you're at this vantage point to be able to really be able to be thoughtful and helpful. But I think there's a bigger piece about how CIOs move into this. And I'm not, they probably need to view more CXOTalk sessions. I will say that.
I agree. Start there.
There's a serious point in that, actually we have to be intellectually curious because there's a lot of opportunity to get confused. There's also a lot of opportunity to try and take on too much and trying to be having rigor and focus about what you can actually deliver, but doing the research around it. And that is by looking at things like CXOTalk and of course working with a number of your research analyst firms to be able to help define your strategy. I think that's a big part of how CIOs are making decisions right now for them to be able to build an innovation strategy. It is a combination of peer conversations. It's about basically being able to look what's happening in the external world and bring that in. And I think that's really important. I think we're very lucky because we are in the Bay Area and we're at the heart of that. But at the same time, the parallels are there across the board. So.
I agree.
So let me play devil's advocate for a second, if I might. So now you're saying that the CIO must really learn the business, and of course that's true. But the CIO, or let me ask as a question, can the CIO ever gain the level of familiarity, knowledge of the business that people in those functional departments possess? And if the CIO doesn't have that level of understanding, then is there kind of an inevitable slide back to just focusing on infrastructure and operations because you don't have that equivalent knowledge as people in the functional areas? So it's a leading question, but please.
I think they have to have a strong appreciation for kind of the work that happens in a number of these, in a number of the functions, and I think that's the critical piece. That you have to have a foundation of kind of being curious and intellectually curious, number one. But I think the other piece is, in order for you to deliver a solution to your business partners in your different functions, whether that's finance or whether that's HR or operations or sales or go-to-marketing, it's about basically understanding what their needs are and then translating those needs into a solution which you can help help accelerate their efforts. And a large part of that really comes from aligning and understanding. And I think the opportunity for the CIO really is the fact that they don't have a frame of reference from that standpoint. They are not deep into those specific functions, so they're coming in from a very agnostic viewpoint to say, what is the best way I can help to alleviate this effort and get them away from and giving them, hey, they need better decision making. Well, we need to be able to retool and deliver better analytics and BI and make that faster and do it in real time. They need to have deeper integration with a number of their applications. And so I think I'm hearing a lot about how you were able to help build a better data strategy for our internal business customers, I would basically call it. And so I think that's why CIOs really just need to be aligned and have probably appreciation without having to become a subject matter expert. So.
And I agree with you. I would build on that as well and say when you think about the three asset stewards in the company, you have the head of HR who is the steward of human resources, and you have the CFO who is the steward of the financial assets, and the CIO ultimately is the steward of the information assets. And everyone owns those information assets, but it really is up to the CIO and the CIO team to be working across the business to make sure the information is flowing freely. So there's an important piece of those three working very well together. It just happens to be where our product is focused, right. But that exists in every CIO space. I think the other thing to build on what Yousuf was saying is, while you can't necessarily be an expert in all of those different business areas, there are scarcely few other functions in the company that touch every single employee in the company and every single business process in the company. So by being right there in the center of the business process, understanding what's working and what's not working, where the white space is between those processes, the CIOs and the organizations have a unique position to influence how the company can operate better. So from that perspective, I think it's the CIO's game to lose if ultimately they end up being responsible only for the infrastructure and plumbing. It's really hard to not be successful if those other aspects of the role are right there for the taking.
And I think it's a very slippery slope, especially in this day and age where you have the ability with leading SaaS products like Workday to be able to provide agility to the business. And if you lose that opportunity, then yes, you're really going to go back into deep operational mode, which again is valued and required, but it's not going to be able to aid the company to be much more innovative.
Right.
It's really interesting, the point that you make that Diana just made, that the CIO is one of the few roles in the company that touches every part of the company. And so that does give you this unique kind of outside-in perspective where you're kind of aggregating the knowledge and the insight of what's going on. So the question then becomes, building on what Yousuf just said, how can the CIO take advantage of this unique vantage point to provide the highest value possible to the organization?
I was going to say, I think the real opportunity for the CIO is to be able to translate kind of business goals and to be able to figure out and really translate those into innovative solutions that they can basically aid the effort, right? I think with that vantage point in mind, with having depth of some of the issues in a number of those functions, having the availability of innovation outside the company as well as innovative thinking inside the company. I mean, the CIO is really not just the guardian, but kind of the steward of being able to bring all of that together. That's the real opportunity for the CIO to be able to make that impact into the business, at least from my standpoint.
Yeah, I agree. I wouldn't change a thing he just said.
Well, that's good.
So then, can you kind of put your finger on or define what is that highest possible value, the best possible role that the CIO can play under optimal circumstances?
One thing I would basically say is I think if they're able to connect the data and make it faster within the company, just as a general high-level perspective, be able to provide, I think is one fundamental goal that the CIO can basically focus on is to be able to really aid the business make better decisions. And that really centers on the fact that I really think that companies are suffering from what I term as kind of data debt. There's a lot of data being generated into these businesses right now and making sense of it. But I think the overarching goal is not only are you able to figure out where the problems are, but you're able to aid each of those functions to be able to make better decisions by being able to, and that's not it's about partnering up with them to be able to say, how do you make a better decision? Let me provide you with the right infrastructure. Let me provide you with the right solutions and software to do that. And then let's see what those results are. Because I think that's kind of what those functions are. So I think it centers on the data and how you can help to provide, how you can provide that and accelerate that effort in businesses from my standpoint.
I agree. I agree with your points on the data. I also, and I've often talked to my teams about this in the past, think the role of the CIO can be almost analogous to your personal financial broker, right, stockbroker, which is we often receive questions from our business partners who will say, we've got all of this opportunity, all this demand for technology spend and technology investment. We all know we'd like to do more than we can possibly afford as a company. Yeah. And so the challenge is how do we make decisions about where we want to invest our resources? And if we think about that as a CIO, we now take a step back and look at all of the places we could possibly make those investments. And we can decide from a portfolio point of view, what percentage of our investment do we want to direct towards driving incremental revenue, and how heavy do we want to weight that in the overall prioritization? What percent of the investment is about scale, or depending on where your company is in its life cycle, possibly driving efficiencies and cost reduction? Yeah. What percent of your portfolio is all around the employee engagement experience, or just maintaining the base of operations? Yeah. And oftentimes what I find is the request is, come in as the CIO and help us make sense of all of these opportunities we have for investment, some of which require trying out innovative new technologies, pushing the digital strategy of the company. Others are just about making the company run better. And if we can shed some light on how to make those decisions and help to manage that process. It requires us to be really good listeners. And to make sure we're bringing everybody together in a transparent way. I think there's a really important role CIOs can play there.
All right, I want to remind everybody that you are watching CXOTalk. This is Orange Friday. Now, why is it Orange Friday? Because both of our guests, their company logos are orange. And so, of course, how could it not be Orange Friday? I'm speaking on episode number 271 of CXOTalk with Diana McKenzie, who is the Chief Information Officer of Workday, and also Yousuf Khan, who is the Chief Information Officer of Pure Storage. And right now, there's a tweet chat going on using the hashtag CXOTalk. And please jump in with your questions. And we have a question from Zachary Jeans. He says, as a CIO, how do you create a culture that avoids politics and infighting, but rather builds a positive and innovative culture and experience? So how do you create a positive culture rather than one that is political and has infighting, which, as we all know, happens in almost every organization all the time? So how do you fight that and do it well?
I would probably boil down to having a culture of transparency. I think I fundamentally believe that aids the ability for organizations to just function better, because they would again, you can't get 100% transparency in some cases, but I think if you have that as a foundation in your culture, that definitely aids the effort for people to get aligned, and also for them to be able to know that they are that they're valued and they're being listened to, but also being able to understand where things are going and taking the mystery out of things and avoiding politics. And I think the second thing is you just got to be very, very collaborative. I pride ourselves in the fact that I think both of our companies are companies which are admired for culture. I know that that's one of the main reasons I joined Pure Storage, because of the culture of the organization, and it is very collaborative. It is very transparent, and it's one that you have a deep sense of ownership that you want to be able to protect. So I think those are sort of fundamentals that we basically have in our culture, and I think they've worked really, really well.
I agree. I think transparency, I think collaboration. I also think being clear on the mission. When we can help a team understand that we're all aligned towards delivering an outcome, and everyone can see themselves in delivering the outcome, and we can set a team up to understand how each individual unit plays a role in delivering that outcome. So in IT, we call that end-to-end service delivery. Yep. But in reality, if we structure our teams such that they each understand what they're consuming from another group and what other groups are consuming from them, and that's measurable, then it makes it easy for us to transparently talk about how we're doing and what we can do to improve. I think the reality is politics exist in every environment because we are human beings, and because of that, there's never going to be an opportunity to get away from politics. What we have to do within IT, to be effective, is we have to be really good at listening, and we have to be really good at storytelling. Yeah. Because we are in the business of change, and anytime we touch any system, any technology, again, any person in the company, we're sort of messing with their world. Yeah. And so for us to be able to do that in a way where we can explain the why the change is happening, that to some extent can help get away from the negative ramifications, if you will, of what might be perceived as politics. Yeah.
I think and honestly, I think a large part of it, definitely in the CIO organization, you've got to be able to really empower your leadership team to be able to have the conversations. And I think that's it's not really focused on enough, but I think it's actually really, really important that you're able to basically build a team that aligns with the culture, right, and is able to basically represent it and drive it further down into the organization. And that really requires a combination of both training, but also basically, as you like to say, tone at the top, right? And I've heard that you mentioned that about the leadership and the executive team at Workday, and that's something that I think is really important that a CIO should take that and say, what signal are you sending to members in your organization of the type of leader that you are and the type of organization that you want to be able to build, and it will be about the tone that you set at the top, I think.
Now, one of the things that you just mentioned was communication. And maybe talk about that. The role of storytelling was, I think, the term one of you just used. So why storytelling?
Why? Yeah. So Simon Sinek, getting to why, starting with why. It's one of the challenges we battle, and I don't know if every functional leader battles this, but within IT specifically, historically, the equation would say, I delivered X, right? I delivered project X because I wanted to do whatever outcome Y.
Yeah.
And a big part of that is let's flip the equation. Yeah. Let's say in order to deliver outcome Y, we did project X. And by just working with the team to help them flip the equation and think about the outcome first, it drives a completely different level of engagement, conversation, listening, collaboration to ensure that whatever's happening on the other side, as cool and sexy as it might be technologically, is actually going to deliver the outcome our business partners are looking to see. So starting with the why, I think, is an important aspect of communication.
And look, I think the other thing is communication skills are definitely going to they are much more heavily focused on in a hiring environment, definitely over the last couple of years, and it's something which I look for when we look to hire. But I think the aspect of storytelling is important because as a CIO, as you're delivering solutions, a large part of it is solving problems. And so one of the other aspects of the culture really is about empathy, right? It's about being able to be empathetic about kind of people's struggles or problems that people are having within the actual organization as they grow. And that happens from a process and a technology standpoint about, a collaborative aspect to it. So being able to tell the story and being able to bring people around, I think that's the important piece, is we just live in such a much more collaborative environment that being able to have, I would say, improving your communication skills and being able to have storytelling at the heart of it gets much more emotive and allows people to be able to connect better rather than basically looking at it in a very programmatic, systematic viewpoint, right? And it's always difficult because, you're a CIO and you're talking about sort of technology and software and solutions. But I think it's about the impact, and that's the real story. Yeah. And being able to tell that story gets people excited because they see things which are being automated, being able to make better decisions, improving customer experience, and relaying that back. I think that's where people get excited. So I think that's where storytelling and kind of getting the communication skills right is really important.
Can I pull on the empathy thread for just a second here? So there's also this element where we get to work with really, really smart people.
Far smarter than me, for sure. I will take that, 100%.
And it's easy, I think, as technologists to believe that because we're working with really, really smart people, all of the things that we're rolling out, they're just going to know how to use them, what they mean. Yeah. It's going to make complete sense to them. And in reality, that isn't always the case because the really, really smart people have a job to do. And their focus is on getting their job done, not necessarily the technology that's enabling their job. So the other aspect of this empathy and storytelling piece is to understand that the world our folks live in and we live in may look a little different than the world that people we're trying to, to help live in. And how do we cross that chasm from that empathy perspective to understand how do we help them understand why we're making the change and what the impact the change is going to have on them?
I think you've touched on a major issue, which is enablement, right? Yeah. When we've been rolling out solutions in place or trying to improve the business and provide business changes, you come in with a lot of positive energy about being able to solve problems and get excited about it. But actually, you need to basically bring people around, right? You need to be able to enable them to not just say, oh, you're putting this in front of me for me to use, but let's talk about what the genesis of this is and why we've basically gone down doing it. And that requires, good communication, but also being able to enable people along a journey for them to get best use out of it. And then have closing the feedback loop to be able to figure out what else can we basically do better and make it incremental. Yeah.
So I have a question. What does this have to do with technology? You guys, information, technology, IT, what does this have to do with technology?
I think it has everything to do with technology because it's at the heart of it. I think the notion that, fundamentally, look, we can talk about every company becoming a technology company. The reality is that every single industry in some way, shape, or form is basically being impacted by a tremendous amount of software being built because the level of innovation and the tooling available for you to be able to build software and disrupt these industries is very, very real. And so fundamentally what that means is for you to be able to innovate, forget about innovation, if you want to be able to really build your company and your organization, irrespective of what sector it is, you've got to build more software and you've got to make better decisions through data. And that's where, irrespective of which function that is, that's going to come down to an IT organization which is able to provide that as a service. We just boil it down to sort of core basics. Like, I'd like to basically say that, we've got to be able to make sure that you're providing the solutions, which is kind of what CIOs really are providing now. It's more about business technology and impact technology and being able to provide business insight. And that's just required across the board. So yeah, I will speak that on behalf of the IT brethren right now.
So let's actually talk about technology and business for a second. So does the CIO today should the CIO today be a technologist or be a business person?
Everything that Yousuf just said about what about technology, again, it's table stakes because there's no reason to have a CIO if ultimately we're not figuring out ways to leverage and harness all the technology that's there to get at the data and help our business partners run the business better and make better informed business decisions. On the other hand, we have no way of positioning how the technology can be used or taken advantage of if we don't understand the business opportunity that exists. So it requires us to be focused in both avenues equally in order to be successful in the role that we're in.
I think there's the healthy balance, right? Otherwise, it's a very begrudging hire of an organization to basically bring in who's going to be focused too much on the operational side. So understanding the business, translating that into a technology solution and being able to have that and build an innovation around it is probably the way I basically view it. So yes.
Okay, all right, no, makes sense. So we have just under 10 minutes left, and I have a whole bunch of questions then, so we're not going to spend an extra couple of hours doing this. So let me ask you some questions and then just give your very quick kind of gut feel reactions, like sort of tweet-sized almost, okay? So number one, what are the most interesting technologies that you see today, coming back to technology?
I definitively believe that the time has come to really talk about AI and machine learning specifically, because I actually think that the ecosystem to be able to help build that from infrastructure, software, and use cases has actually matured tremendously. So I do actually think that CIOs need to be able to look at where they can provide that impact. Because whilst I think it's been early, it actually has grown, and I've actually seen where it's actually been impactful. And I think there's just a lot of, I think that should be definitely a focus. Now that's definitely focusing towards a buzzword, but I think the second piece is, it's the second iteration of basically figuring out how you're able to basically provide better data to your company, simply because the level of data being ingested by businesses right now and data producers has just grown exponentially. So that's one of the things, that's my core goals, is to be able to make sure that we're able to sort of take this. I mean, if you just think about it, we're now got everything from IoT, drones, sensors, whether it's from motorbikes or cars or shoes, right? It is being basically brought in, telemetry data is being brought into these businesses. And to be able to make sense of that, you need to be able to ahead of it. And so that's how I look at it. I just look at the fact that we've got to be very thoughtful and focused on these two core big areas. I think that's plenty just from that standpoint.
So what he said around AI and ML, I would add to that blockchain is, I think the potential blockchain has to disrupt more than just the financial services industry is very real. It may be far out into the future, but when I think about healthcare and I think about identity management and what's possible with a model like that, I'm very excited to see what can happen with that basic design of blockchain in other industries.
Then another question for you, and I'm just looking at the clock and we have 5 minutes left. So how do you learn yourselves, each of you personally? How do you learn about new technologies, and how do you what's coming up with startups, or how do you go about doing that?
One is I do collaborate with startups and companies that want to be able to align, which are building solutions which align with the problems and that really happens by connecting up with VCs and investors in the space. I think the second thing is, yes, there's a conversation that I have with peer groups like Diana, who I'm able to learn tremendous amounts from, and I think that's a big piece. And I think the third thing is really being able to listen and understand what's happening, signaling from a market perspective, right? In terms of where people are making the investments, but also in terms of some of the things that are being focused on in terms of inquiries that are coming in. So, yes, you use the research available to you, but I think a large part of it is being able to triangulate those three kind of vectors, at least from my standpoint, that aid my decision making and build a strategy around.
Well, and I would add, watch all previous 270 episodes of CXOTalk. And then I also, in addition to everything Yousuf said, listen to what really smart people I know read. And when they tell me they've read something or they're following a certain author, I subscribe to it and do my best to try to keep up with a lot of reading. But it helps to continuously keep my perspective changing.
Yeah. It actually also aids you what not to do. So that's right. That's the other thing, right?
A lot
it's
of
like,
learning.
wow, there's a lot of learning. So it's about sort of success and failure, and I've definitely learned from both of those. So.
Okay, and as we go into the last 4 minutes or so of the show, what advice do each of you have for CIOs who want to become CIOs of absolutely the first order? And so what does that mean to be a CIO of the first order? And again, how do you get there? And we kind of talked about this, but now what I'm asking you to do, and I'm chewing up your time here, but how do you, if you can distill down like the pure essence of what you know, what does it mean to be a CIO of the first order, and how can CIOs out there achieve that exalted position? Great place.
I'll start with 2 points and then you can build on those.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I'll go back to be a student of your business and be a student of your industry first. And then building what Yousuf said earlier, build your team. Because it's only when you have a team capable of taking on the work that you delegate and empower them to do that you have the time and the bandwidth to spend time with your business partners and externally bringing the perspective in that you'll need to shape the direction of the company you work for.
I think I would boil down to two things. Yes, think about what type of leader you want to basically be, and that's kind of really important. It's about, and I think that's critical piece. I think the second piece is listening is a skill in itself, but listening to what's worked and what hasn't worked is probably going to be able to aid your effort. And be rigorous in terms of what you want to be able to get done. Articulating output is actually a really hard thing because projects take a long time and things that, so being able to provide rigorous focus and being able to articulate that in the form of a vision is really, really important.
And any final thoughts as we end this episode 271 of CXOTalk?
I actually have one piece of advice in all seriousness. I think there's a tremendous amount of opportunity as a CIO to get a lot of stuff done, but it's also about being overwhelmed, and I think it's very easy to be overwhelmed. If you're in a CIO role or trying to basically go into CIO role, I think one of the things I've found, and maybe you agree or disagree, is helping find the common denominator to be able to get a decision made around a company is really important. And I think that's the real, one of the things I've seen done well is, we have a phenomenal CHRO at Pure named Joanna Jackman, and she was able to basically bring people around as the first CHRO at Pure Storage to be able to talk in a collective fashion about what problems were and be able to drive decisions from that standpoint. And I learned tremendously amount from her. So my one advice is find the common denominator and drive people around it and help them make a decision and the solution for it.
And I would say technology is table stakes,
Yep.
but we are in a people business. Businesses are run by people, and so focus on understanding people and knowing what it takes to influence people, and you're going to be successful.
I wouldn't be afraid to take risks as
take
well.
risks, that's a good
like I
one.
said, it's the age of being able to test and figure out whether things work and build and iterate. So I think, I would definitely advise towards that for sure.
All right. Well, then, okay, we're over time, but that begs the question very quickly: how do you know when to take the risk? You brought it up.
Well, that's totally fine. I mean, look, I actually think that's about, honestly, just correlating lots of opinions, right? And being able to get an assessment. I think really having instincts about whether it's aligned, whether it's the right time to be able to make that. Timing is everything. And so I think finding the right opportunity to be able to figure out that risk is probably the most important piece.
It's judgment and experience.
Yeah.
Okay, on that note, I want to thank everybody for watching episode 271 of CXOTalk. We have been speaking with two of the most innovative CIOs that I know, and what an honor for them to be together here, for me to have them together on CXOTalk.
It's an honor for us.
It's an honor for me. I love that fist bump. My wife refuses to do fist bumps with me because she says that I don't know how to do a fist bump, but
I wear a sweater vest. I can't go any cooler. That's about as cool as I basically get. I'm sorry, Michael. That's it.
All right. So we've been speaking with Diana McKenzie, who's the CIO of Workday, and Yousuf Khan, who is the CIO of Pure Storage. Everybody, thank you so much for joining us. Next Friday, we're talking with Adriana Karaboutis, who is the CIO and Chief Digital Officer of National Grid. It's one of the largest energy distribution companies in the world, and she'll be talking about digital transformation in the energy business. Thanks so much, everybody. Have a great day, and hey, it's you gotta have a great day and be cool. Be cool. This is as cool as I get.